I have with me today my dear friend Brenda Julian Williams, who is a technician, I think that's what you call yourself many times, for working with the Earth Project that you can tell us a little bit about that. But what we want to focus on today is something that developed out of that Earth Project, the reset breath. Now, there are other components, the quiet touch, as well as the 18 inches. But today I want us to focus on the part that I believe is the most important because it's a foundational piece. What is the reset breath?
Okay, in a short version, several things came about. We understood right away that the human beings on the planet are in what we call sympathetic default, meaning pedal to the metal, we're rushing, we're not always aware. So we're not only not using our ancient wisdom, we are not fully using the design of the human physiology, which allows us to use that discernment at a very deep level. So the reset breath was designed to quiet the body and use the form to its maximum ability, putting us in what is known as parasympathetic, which allows all physical systems to work together in unison. It began with looking at breath work that's been talked about for centuries. When we tell someone to take a deep breath, what happens is they inhale and it puts the body immediately into sympathetic default. How do we bridge that? So we begin another way. We begin with the exhale. If you will take your understanding back to the moment of your birth, the child comes out of the birth canal and it goes, and cries. It does that inhale to receive. It's receiving the breath of life. And what does it do then? Well, it will cry. But the cry, anything after that, is an exhale, which sets that parasympathetic routing in place. So we knew immediately to begin with an exhale. So the breath is very simple. It's 3 components. You exhale through the mouth. Then you inhale through the nose, and then you exhale through the mouth. Following that breath, noticing as that breath leaves your body any signals, whatever draws your attention to what's happening in the body, because that's where your clues lie, in those signals. So it looks a little bit like this, and I'll exaggerate it. It goes, and your attention is following that pause, we call it. It doesn't stop your breathing. You're going back to your normal breathing. But if you're just pausing, you can also notice that there's no need for an instant gasp of inhale.
That's right.
You have a long period of time to notice and observe. Mm-hmm. There's a reason for that, because what it's doing now is bringing all of your systems back into alignment and allowing those systems to say, what is it that I need to pay attention to now? And how is my system? Do I feel peaceful? Was there something that changed in the environment around me? Did something change in the environment within me? Where is my attention in this moment? And what happens with this is it sets up the next phase of what we call the conversations, because this allows us now to have an intimate conversation internally with ourselves. That engagement then allows us to come together with others in our field of existence and have another intimate conversation with them. This was the connection. This is the unification. And that's what the reset breath actually brings into being. It allows that to take place.
Now, when we've done the reset breath in groups, we have used that to set a resonant field. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Okay, the resonant field has to do with particularly a hertz frequency of around 8 hertz. 8 hertz by astrology, by the astronauts who were in the space capsules. The body functions at peak efficiency at that hertz. Our body was designed to do that. We call it a resonant field. The pause between our in-breath and our out-breath hits that frequency and allows resonance. Resonance allows us to open to potential, to possibilities without the distortion of belief systems or disharmonic thought patterns. It brings everything into a synchronistic place. And that's what the reset breath does. It opens that potential. What you do with that potential is up to you. And we do have ways that we can expand that and amplify that and allow that to become more present in our awareness. But the reality is we have set that resonant field, which is what we were designed to be in resonance with the planet. We function the same way. So we want to be able to move with her. We want to be able to move with other human beings on the planet. That's what resonant fields allow. Noticing the movement.
Mm-hmm. So when we are doing the reset breath for ourselves, we're bringing ourselves into alignment with that field, with the Schumann. And then when we do it in a group, we're individually aligning, which brings us collectively into resonance with that field where anything can happen. You and I have talked many times about taking this to the mainstream. How can the reset breath be used at a board meeting or just in our daily conversations with one another? Like if there's conflict, how could the reset breath help with that?
Well, let me give you an example that's actually happened. Many years ago in the late 90s, I was given the opportunity to work with 4 elementary schools, with their system, with their bus drivers, with their staff, with their teachers, or with their everybody. And what came out of that was that every morning when the principal did morning announcements, she led them in a reset breath. When they got into their classrooms, and she would just do it. We're going to do this breath. They did it. When they got into their classrooms, the teachers did a reset breath with their students. When the students were preparing to leave, they did a reset breath. What they noticed was, first of all, more peaceful movement between classes. It accelerates the learning capability because you're not having conflict between mind and body. So a lot of positive physical things took place. But what came out of that was the peacefulness. What it did was within that particular school environment, and then trickling down to each classroom, building on what was said in the morning in that announcement, the school was in a resonant field. So we established a multi-level way to build this so that it starts with someone beginning it, one person, trickles to several people doing it, and then building out. So if you're going into, say, a meeting or a board meeting, and you really want to maximize your ability to communicate at a holistic level, meaning mind, body, and spirit working in resonance and concert with one another, the reset breath is the way to begin. And those were just, one of many examples. And then begin to have a conversation about what you notice. If you were bringing attention to what did someone in the room notice? When you came in, everybody was busy and they were rushing. When the reset breath happens, the room calms down because it works not only with the bioacoustic, the body movement, it also works with the ecoacoustic, the environment within which the body is residing.
Beautiful.
Is that too much?
No, I think that is exactly what I was needing to hear. I think that checks a lot of boxes, answers a lot of questions, and yeah, in a time like we're living in right now, where there's so much chaos and confusion and fear, anxiety attacks, and all this kind of stuff, I could see anybody. It's not based on religion. It's not even breath work. It's the practice that anybody can use regardless of their belief system or their genetics or whatever, how would you see somebody using this if they're on the subway having a panic attack?
Panic attacks are generally caused because our mind sets up a scenario of fear.
Yeah.
That is a sympathetic thing. I'm fearful, I'm poised, I'm cocked, I'm ready to go, I'm breathing deeply, I'm all
fight or flight.
Fight or flight, sometimes freeze. So the reset breath shifts that, beginning with that exhale. What happens is it shifts that belief for a moment and says, wait a minute, what's really happening out here? Is someone shooting, or is someone chasing you with a gun? If they are, then I'm going to
it's time to run.
or I'm going to take action. But 90% of what we're experiencing day to day is not at that level.
It's perceived.
But we are still, it is perceived, and our perception is what determines what happens in front of us and what happens within our physical form, because it is ruled by our rational mind. And it says, wait a minute, this is not what's happening, but our emotional database is saying, oh, but every time this happens, this is what comes up. So I'm not going to believe what you're saying. Okay, let me go back here and rest. You take care of it. And the emotional reaction based on experience and what we've been taught and told for centuries says, this is not good, so let me have a panic attack. Panic attack don't solve anything.
Well, all these problems are created in the mind, so you can't undo them with the mind. They've got to come into what everybody's harping about, the heart space, and that's what the reset breath is really doing, is bringing us into resonance with our heart vibration, with our true essence, whatever you call that. Some people call it spirit, soul, but bringing us into harmonics with divinity. Can it be expressed that way?
That's what happens when the ancient chakra system is our power center. It's our power center. It's the power of the gut and the heart, the mind, the whole 9 yards, up and down, straight line, up and down.
Okay.
The human being came in here and said, well, wait a minute, I want to have an experience, and I've been given free will to have one.
Right.
So I can't just sit, in a lotus position and ignore, because I'm not in a cave anymore. I'm out here experiencing life. So let's build a new routing system. So if you look at the chakra system here, the routing system is now perpetually moving, connecting with all sections, which bridges now and says, I can work with the wisdom and the feelings and the emotion of the heart in a different way. I can use discernment, but on top of that, we're now working with this parietal lobe, which says, I am now determining which one of these systems I want to use.
Which one I want to interact with, yes.
Assert with one another. I'm going to take the wisdom of the ancients, I'm going to build the wisdom of the human physiology, and I'm going to use them together to have a holistic embodiment of divine wisdom in a divine human form that knows how to get us through these things, if we will but listen to the subtleties of the movement within the system. Instead of what's happening outside, we are watching it, we are observing, and we're choosing from the inside.
I love it. Living from the inside out and not the outside in. That's where the chaos comes from, out there, what we have created collectively to believe in, all that craziness. And then if that's our reality, naturally the body's going to respond to that if we let it. But the body also responds to the reset breath and to centering and coming into that place of harmony, and that place where everything is connected, where the ancient chakra system is engaged and the routing is working properly. Then we have free choice. We have choice to calm ourselves right in the middle of a panic attack.
Right. The parietal lobe is sitting in the center where the entire control mechanism of the human form is. It's also right there where the pineal gland is. The parietal lobe is actually the third eye in human form. We don't have an eye that looks out here. And everybody talks about, let me open my third eye. Why don't you use your parietal lobe? Because it is where all of the information comes together, ancient and current.
Oh.
And when we begin to utilize the body itself is the most intricate system of knowledge that exists, because it accesses everything. We just don't know how to use it because we're using systems not holistically. We're using pieces, parts. Mm-hmm. And what's happening now is, as we become that trivector human, is that we are now able to see what we want to use, mm-hmm. use it wisely, and then take action or stand down, whichever mm-hmm. one is most appropriate for the situation. Mm-hmm. It's actually using the discernment, mm-hmm. but using the wisdom of the seeing eye that sees it all. Well, the parietal, the third eye, the wisdom sees it all and makes a choice accordingly, instead of only seeing one piece and jumping to a conclusion. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, it's like the elephant in the room with the blind man. If you put a bunch of people who can't see and you put an elephant in the room, they'll all see it differently, and they're all surprised when they see, well, we're about to get a big surprise. We are about to see the elephant in the room, and it is not what we thought it was.
We're going to talk a lot more about that in our conversations of a different kind that you're going to be doing in our podcast here, that we're going to be sharing some information. Before we close this segment, I know there's a lot of other things that we could talk about, but I want to really kind of segment this reset breath and offer that as something that anybody can access. So let's practice a reset breath, and just let everybody who's listening practice that and feel it for themselves, to experience it. I want them to have the experience.
Wonderful.
Of reset breath. Let's do it.
When you're working with anyone with the reset breath, the easiest way to start it is, I will say, ready, begin, exhale. So when you're doing this or sharing it with someone else, that's the easy way, because what you don't want to do is to give them the timing. Mm-hmm. Each timing has to be individual. So the first time that we do the experience, it will be exhale, inhale, exhale, following. Those are instructions. Mm-hmm. We'll do it in 2 sections. I will lead you through the first one, and then I will say, ready, begin. You will begin with an exhale, and then we will have our experience. So ready, begin. You'll exhale through the mouth. Inhale through the nose, keeping your shoulders down, being peaceful, not worrying about whether or not it goes all the way to the abdomen, because you want the lungs to expand as you go down. And now exhale through the mouth, following the breath, noticing anything that might attract your attention. And as you're going back to your normal breathing, or perhaps just taking a pause and being present, whatever's comfortable for you, just be present with that. Take a moment. And we will always ask the question, what did you notice?
Mm-hmm. That's where I want you to leave in the comments down below this post. Tell us, what was your experience with this reset breath?
Yeah. Because it hit the zone.
I felt it. I did. I felt that shift. I felt, first of all, lightheaded. It's kind of like, woo. And it's like, okay, I'm going to sit with that. And then it come down. It's like the lightheadedness came down, and the energy went through the entire body. And then the peacefulness. Right. Then I noticed the peacefulness.
Which was a little bit of a surprise, because very rarely does that happen in the instruction. And that was like, oh, it didn't need to do anything else. because it did it worked right away.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking, just between you and me, if that maybe has something to do with the magic box.
Yeah, well, we already have a resonant field. Anytime we come together, we click. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it's not unusual for me to be able to feel that anytime I'm with you. In fact, sometimes when I'm with you in your energy, and this is something we could talk about in another podcast, but when you're in the energy of another person and they're really resonant and they're really focused, and carrying the light, and they're carrying the vibration, and they're working with the parietal gland that you're talking about, and you come into the parietal lobe. When you come into their presence, there's automatically, you can feel it. If you'll pause a moment, the reset breath will allow you to feel that, but that does not inflict anything on you. You still have choice. They're not pushing that field on you.
The objective is to bring our fields together in one consecutive movement that replicates what the routing does in the body. It's perpetual motion, and there's constant moving. So we're in and out of these different fields all the time. And we'll talk another time about the 18 inches, because we understand how to move in concert with rather than in conflict with other people. And that's a lot of where we're going with this.
Yes.
Thank you. Goodness.
Thank you.
It's always such a pleasure. I have such fun with you.
Oh, it's always an education and an experience that I will treasure.
I got you. It's just a lot of fun, because I think of all the people, you have a way of, kind of getting a lot of stuff going.
Yeah.
So thank you.
All right. So that's the reset breath, folks. Practice that. Do that as often as you want. There's no way to overuse it, right, Brenda? I mean,
no. The one thing you want to do, though, if you'll keep one thing in mind, it is task oriented. Meaning, if you wake up in the morning, if you do a reset breath before you get out of bed, you go brush your teeth, you get your coffee, you get ready to go to work, before you exit your house, do a reset breath. When you come back in the evening and come into your environment, reset. What that does is it leaves all of the tasks in their proper place. You're not pulling a whole wagon full of the day's experience on your shoulders. You're coming in each moment and resetting. That moment becomes, that now moment becomes all you have to focus on, instead of all the things that are racing around in your mind. And that's how the reset breath remains intact in your field and in your awareness, is that there's only this moment. And we talk that a lot, but this is a way for you to actually experience it and have language around it.
I love it. I love it. Okay, thank you so much, Brenda.
Thank you. You get to your next one now.
All right, sweetie.
Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye-bye.